I am your host, Donna Cryer. I am the founder and CEO of the Global Liver Institute, and I have the fantastic opportunity today of bringing you a fantastic array of guests to talk about the topic of surviving and thriving post-transplant, something I know a little bit about. For those of you who have been regular watchers of GLI Live, you will notice we have a new set, as they say. I have moved across the hall to now, I guess we call this Studio B, otherwise previously known as my guest room. And so looking forward to adding more, more content, more time spent with you everywhere around the world from here. So one of the questions that we will be asking, happy to take comments during the show or after, is for a business book, a leadership book, a healthcare book that you think I should read, that you think should be featured on this bookshelf in a future episode of GLI Live. Please let us know on any of our social platforms. So with that, this episode is, for me, it's 26 years in the making, because I'm so grateful to be 26 years post liver transplant. And I have with me some fantastic folks. So Dr. Rohit Satoskar is a founding member of the Global Liver Institute, founding board member of the Global Liver Institute, but has been sort of my clinical innovation guru for at least a decade before that. He has been responsible for a lot of the e-learning content at ASLD, our medical society in hepatology. And he is also medical director of liver transplantation and a program director of the hepatology, transplant hepatology fellowship at MedStar Georgetown Transplant Institute, just down the street. So I'm glad that we could meet at least by Zoom here. Dr. Satoskar, welcome.
Thanks, Donna. I'm really thrilled to be here. Thank you so much for having me. It's been wonderful to know you all these years and to see all the great things that you continue to do. You really continue to amaze me, and you're an inspiration to a lot of people. So congratulations. I'm happy to be here. And I'm happy to be here with Warner and Karen. I think this episode, it's my first time on GLI Live, but I think this episode is, as it should be, really be about patients and patient experience. And so I'm excited to learn a lot from our guests also, but throw in my 2 cents where I can.
It's worth far more than that. It's precious. And so also precious to me is Karen Hoyt, who is, you have so many patient experiences. I will let you tell them about them yourselves. But you are also our GLI grassroots ambassador, and one of our just most illustrious graduates of our Advanced Advocacy Academy, and someone who I've been very excited to call a friend for these past few years. And Warner DePriest is a new friend and a transplant recipient of longstanding.
29 years.
29 years. I'm so excited to meet people, transplant recipients than me. I did have the advantage when I first started my job at UNOS to be working for a transplant recipient. So it always gave me just that little bit of knowledge, that little bit of hope that somebody was out there just a little further. So to see you, to meet you, to hear your story, as we all will in a few minutes, is so exciting.
Glad to be here.
Thank you. So I'm actually going to start with Karen. Karen, you are a ray of sunshine and optimism and calm as a yoga instructor, I guess would be, but that really belies all that you have gone through. And so can you tell us about your story in liver and transplantation, and then what you do with it now?
Well, Donna, as you know, in 2010, I had that emergency room diagnosis, I call it. I didn't know I was sick. I just kind of ran around with hepatic encephalopathy. I thought the whole world needed that many sticky notes to conduct their life. And then when my liver failed, I looked back over the prior 3 or 4 years, and I was just pushing myself on caffeine because my liver did fail. I blew up with ascites and had emergency blood transfusions and paracentesis, and was diagnosed with, they said, end stage. And, within a few months, the biopsies proved it. And I was too sick to even get the hepatitis C treatment. Well, the new protease inhibitors weren't out yet. So by the time they came out, honestly, I was that last ditch patient that the doctor said, if you'll sign everything, you're not going to make it anyway, so you may as well give it a try. And I did. And my grandmother called it hardiness. I just had a bit of stoicism, I think, is always helpful. And, a lot of inspiration. And like you said, as an athlete, and I knew how to discipline myself. And, when I think about patients, so I didn't find an organization to follow. I didn't find anybody else with Hep C who looked like me. And I didn't know anyone else. I called the health department. I called all the big foundations, and everybody says, we don't know any, we can't hook you up with a group meeting or a small group. So I created my own online and started a website for people with hepatitis C or cirrhosis. And I found a following, and we're still like a little family kind of huddled together, finding our way. And so I think, probably the word organized. I was organized in spite of it, and I was organized because of liver disease. And so staying organized, and then creating my own little website and getting through, and then getting diagnosed with cancer, and then getting the transplant. And then it's just like, I'll just keep staying alive. Someone said, they asked me to speak at a couple of years ago, and they said, but Karen, why do you think we're giving you this award? And I said, I guess because I just refused to die. It's like I've got
awesome.
Resiliency. Yeah, but so that's why I admire you, Donna, and people who help other people get organized, because life is messy with liver disease. Life's messy anyway. And I was a very organized teacher. I was an organized professor. And then all of a sudden my life's a mess. And I don't even know if I can make it to the bathroom on time. And so I lost my dignity. I lost my pride. I was humble. I was vulnerable, and I was scared. And at least I knew how to meditate and pray and do yoga. And I had my tools in place. But so being that vulnerable, and then finding that, like you, Warner, and you, Donna, and then becoming, I call Donna the umbrella. And I kind of picture a globe full of people with liver disease, from all types of liver disease. And Donna's holding the umbrella, and she's saying, yeah, it's raining cats and dogs out there, but the sun's shining somewhere, and we're going to find it. And so, so I created my little umbrella, and then I took my umbrella and got underneath Donna's, just like other people who have, other advocates who have liver disease. And we're thriving. And I'm so glad to be a part of this forum. So I'm still there talking about liver disease, just hopefully for another 26 to 29 years. So thank you, guys.
Oh, thank you. It's been so exciting to see all the different ways that you have channeled your experience and passion into advocacy. Warner, now you've been doing this a lot longer than all of us. So what can we learn from you? Tell us about your path.
Yeah. So my health issue started when I was 2 months old. Actually, I got jaundice, fever, and we looked around the country. At that point, we knew my liver was failing, and we couldn't really find a quality place that was doing liver transplants at the time, because it was still early times in the transplant world. So we hear about Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was 6 months old, I got my liver transplanted at Children's Pittsburgh. And I've just been thriving since. I've had off and on fevers over the years. But Yeah, mostly just been doing well. When I was 13, I found Camp Bridges. Camp Bridges is a camp for transplant recipients located in Alexander City, Alabama.
Mhm.
And when I was 13, I found that camp, and I was just blown away. Like the other kids and I, like they have so many more issues than I did. Like it was just an eye-opening experience to see like what I had, but what also they were dealing with. Like some had like double lung and heart transplants, some had bone marrow transplants.
Mhm.
I've lost a couple friends that I met at Camp Bridges as well. But those kids are just amazing, and I've been blessed to also be able to serve as a counselor there too for a couple years.
Oh, that must have just amazing perspective. I love that you brought perspective to it about, your own circumstances, and then, turned it back into, well, how can I serve? How can I be a part of kids coming after me to have a better experience? I think that's definitely the ethos that I live by. So Dr. Satoskar, hearing this, and you must be sort of a relief spending a day or at least an hour with healthy transplant recipients out this long, doing this well. Nobody crashing, nobody. What have you seen across your years of transplantation? Warner as talked about the early days on the pediatric side. I was relatively in 1994, relatively early in the history of liver transplantation, and put on a drug that was still called FK506 at the time.
I was too.
Yeah.
I was too. Yep, absolutely.
Still just had letters and numbers, and so
Yep.
So what have you seen in transplantation over these years?
Yeah, so transplantation has changed over the years. We've evolved, we've grown, and it sounds cliche to say this, but this is the reason why, as medical professionals, we do what we do, is to see these types of outcomes. For me, and I think that sort of in the warm up to this, when we were sort of informally discussing, Karen made a comment about that post-transplant, one of the goals is to get people back to their best life. I can't remember if that's exactly how you worded it, but that's how I like to think of transplant too, is really a transformative process, as you can see here. The goal for me and for my patients is to really get them back to their best life. And that means something different for everybody.
Right.
Transplantation over the years has allowed a lot of people to do that. And over time, more and more people to do that, because our outcomes have improved over time with liver transplant. We are seeing people recover quicker, get back to their lives quicker, and then really have long, fulfilling lives after liver transplant. We're also seeing that access to transplant has increased over time. So you heard, at least we heard from two of you, that when you received your liver transplants, it was not easy to get a liver transplant. And I wouldn't say it's easy now, but it's easier than it was when you received your transplants. There are more centers doing transplant around the U.S. There have been efforts in terms of allocation of organs, living donor organs, other ways to increase access to transplant. And while we still don't have enough organs for everyone that needs a transplant, we're doing better. So I think that's sort of in broad strokes how some of the field of transplantation has evolved over time.
One of the things I talked about recently on a digital transformation in healthcare speech I was giving was the example of a early bulletin board. I think it was still like a dial-up modem where I first found other transplant patients. And what I found them talking about were, coming off of prednisone, right? And I was like, wait, you're coming off of prednisone. And I was maybe a year post-transplant and I was still on prednisone. And I was like, I went back to my transplant team, was like, do you think I could come off prednisone? And they're like, let's try it. And I successfully came off of prednisone. But it was that conversation with other patients about, oh, you know what, and that realization, oh, at other centers, they do these things, they do things differently. That was sort of an eye-opening moment, both about the types of conversations I could have with my transplant team and really start being more of a partner, active partner in my care, but also that there was this increasing number of the world that was becoming connected of people who were also going through this experience. And so, one of the things I would love for you to discuss for a moment is, what does the first year of transplant look like versus 5 years? And then we can talk about, sort of the things that we all run around doing. But that first few months and that first year, there are a lot of questions. There's a lot of personalization of care. There's a lot of readjustment of medications. Everybody now, thanks to COVID, is a lot more interested in the immune system. But, how do you, Dr. Satoskar, how do you describe to people the expectations for that first year of transplantation?
Yeah, thanks for that question. The first year post-transplant, in some ways, is the most intense.
Mm-hmm.
And as you allude to, it's the most intense because it requires the most frequent follow-up.
Mm-hmm.
It requires, the more frequent lab draws, more frequent investment. Usually, post-transplant patients are on more medications than they will be long-term.
Mm-hmm.
And over time, some of those medications can go away. But for all of those reasons, that first year is intense. And then probably the biggest reason that first year is more intense is because your body's recovering. So you've undergone, for most people, you've undergone sort of this transformation for where your body has been sick from chronic liver disease for a long time. There are some other indications for liver disease, but I'm sorry, for transplant, but most patients have chronic liver disease. And you sort of then move into this other phase, and you've undergone a major stress to the body, which is the surgery for liver transplant. So, during that first year, your body is recovering. Patients are recovering both physically, but they're recovering emotionally too. There are a lot of feelings and emotions that people experience after liver transplant. There's a whole spectrum of them. And so I think all of those things in that first year can make that year intense. There's really sort of a range of different types of patients that may come to transplant too. Some have varying degrees of illness compared to others. And I think sort of what the sort of initial post-transplant period looks like also depends on that, on how ill the patient is going into transplant. But that first year is I keep saying intense because I think it's a good way to describe it. It is an intense year. But for most patients, it gets easier over time. And the one thing that I think is very important that you mentioned, and the word you used, Donna, was partner or partnership. And I think that's how we now as medical professionals really look at the post-transplant period and the relationship with the patient. So, while I hope that our team is sort of the expert in knowing the medical science and what the drugs do and what their side effects may be and what dose you need to be on. The patients are the ones that know their body and they know their environment. And it's really that partnership between the patient and the medical professional that makes the long-term success happen.
I think so. I think most of us spend a lot of time, in conversations with newly transplanted patients, saying, yes, that's normal. And, and talk to your transplant team, ask these questions, but, it is normal. It is normal to, for your hands to shake or for you to have, some pain. But you have to sort of get up and start moving. It is normal to have, and there's a list of things, but for the most part, it is just an adjustment, as you said, for your body. Warner, you were so young, you had to both sort of adjust to the transplant and grow as a child. So that's a little different. How was that?
So to Dr. Satoskar's point, I actually don't remember my first year of transplantation, truthfully, but I do remember the fifth.
Mm-hmm.
I had a nasal gastric tube because I wasn't absorbing food well.
Mm-hmm.
Then I found this supplement that I actually still use today. It's called 5NX. Nestle makes it, and I just make it into a drink, and it gives me like a boost of energy.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a big help. But absolutely, it definitely gets easier over time. Like I had periodic health issues when I was a child, but I got into a rhythm of medication and familiarity with it, really,
Mm-hmm.
and got used to it. And now I'm doing well. And
you're doing very well. You are a medal award-winning athlete, as is Karen. I know. So tell us about how that.
Yeah. So the United States transplant games are held every other year in pre-COVID time. And they're basically a forum for donor recipients, families of donors, families of recipients, and the recipients themselves to come into one place and just be and put away the stigma that some people can associate with tough medical issues, and just be normal.
Yeah.
And compete in racquetball, which I did, and thankfully won a few medals. Actually, when I was 17, I won my division, and then they bumped me up, and then I won that division. So it's just been a blessing to, and I've just let the transplant guide my life, guide my decisions, and now I'm able to thrive and work comfortably.
That's fantastic. So Karen, tell us about your athletic achievements. Yours are yours were at the Global Transplant Games.
Yes. Well, when the day they found the tumor, I came home and I just started Googling on this MacBook, and I started looking for people. I wanted to see the scar. So people with liver transplant, I didn't know anybody with liver transplant. I didn't know anybody. I knew them online. And so I had seen good and bad outcomes. And so I wanted to see the scar. And then I found the transplant games just that night. And I was probably up till 2 a.m. And I thought, I can do this. And I didn't know I'd made the vow until my grandkids came to spend the night. And the little one, just before bed, she said, well, Nan, Mom says it's okay to cry. And they just buried their grandma with cancer. And so my little granddaughters were just really trying to face Nana's mortality. I'd been sick with liver disease for a few years. They were used to blood transfusions. They'd seen a lot. They actually, would give Procrit injections. They'd help me at home. I tried to, take the fear out of their lives. But I said, no, it's going to be okay. And I just, on the spot, I said, I'm probably not going to die. I'm probably going to get a liver transplant, and I'm going to be a gold medalist. And so they were like, oh, and so my daughter came in and she said, Mom, you're in denial. They said, guys, Nana does have cancer and it doesn't look good. And they're like, but who will buy the big presents? At Christmas, Nana always buys the big presents. They knew to ask. And I said, Nana's going to win the gold medal. We still get big presents for the rest of our lives. So, awesome. And that began. And so my husband got me an indoor bicycle, and I began cycling indoor throughout all of my tastes. And I had a year of procedures, and I had 2 dry runs. So I was on the list for a long time. And it was like my BMI got low. It was a struggle to stay above 100 pounds. And it was tough. I have two hospitals in my state. And really loved my medical team. I actually was at both but I wasn't able to teach. I quit teaching second semester and just kind of stayed home, hunkered down. And you do that end of life planning. So for me, there was a lot of grief, but there was also just a lot of just deal with it. But I never quit cycling. And so then a year post-op, I was able to go compete in Spain. And I did win that gold medal. It was a big deal to me. I cried and cried and cried. And it was huge. And I still keep it out. It's something that it was a way of setting a goal. It became something tangible for me. But my first year, doctor, you spoke about that first year. So I went for a walk. My caregiver slept late, and I was on steroids that first month. And see, I was only on steroids for a month with my transplant. Things had changed radically. Yeah. But my caregivers woke up, and I was gone, and they couldn't find me. And I decided to do an extra block. Every morning I was doing a block, and that morning I lapped out. And so they came in search, and sure enough, I was on a curb a few blocks over. And they called the doctor, and they finally said, let's back her off the program. She's feeling too good. And that's kind of, that was, yeah, it was amazing. And so I just had my 5th year anniversary. They put off my 5-year cancer MRI due to COVID. And in September, I had my 5-year MRI, and my doctor said, well, we don't need to do that MRI again. It looks like your liver's clear and you're going to be okay. And I literally went back online, but I went back into the classroom within 2 weeks. It was like that was my get home free card. And I finally rounded that corner. And I guess I never knew that I would, there's a joke. My daughter went through last night and was helping me clean pictures off my phone. And she said, Mom, why do you have 10 pictures of that one window with a pink sunrise or with bluish sunrise or with that gray? But I'll just lay in bed and just hit the thing. And as the sun rises, and it makes me weepy to think about it, because I wake up, my eyes open and there's that window. You can't knock me down. I mean, I get, we all have rough times in life, but I'm a little, if you've got a problem, don't come to me, because I'm annoyingly happy because
absolutely.
I'm breathing and then it's like, here, I'm breathing some more. And I'm just very, very, very thankful for that. But we went through and she said, can you just keep one? And I said, no, I can't. All the sunrises every day, gray sky, blue sky. So 5 years out, I'm still very thankful. And I'm still thankful. I want to speak to the doctors at the ASLD. And, you talked about the partnership, and my doctor did partner with me. I had the glory of getting to teach high school. And I don't know if you know William Longmire out of Sapulpa, Oklahoma, who was early in transplant medicine. And I got to teach at the high school with William Longmire, a country doctor from Sapulpa, Oklahoma. And then he went on, and as you know, in California, he's well known. So I feel like, country people, when I talk to the doctors on this COVID team, there's rural doctors, there's urban doctors, I think gastroenterologists and transplant surgeons in general, brilliant. I mean, these people are rock star brainiacs, and I'm so thankful for that. But respectful, the word that I kept going through my mind, they're so respectful of where we are in our stage. And I heard that from you, doctor, that the first year is rough for us, but you're with us in that time. And so I'll just do a plug real quick. Donna, I'm answering a lot of questions that you didn't even ask.
This makes the show either really easy or really hard, Karen, with you. No, but hold on. I'm going to ask you a question. I might tell one story, but I'm going to ask you the question that I know you want to answer. Your story about the sunrises. Even Saturday, it was up at 4:30 a.m. I was going to be speaking at the Swiss autoimmune meeting. And as I was waiting there, I realized, and I started my remarks with, as I'm waiting for the sun to rise here, in Washington, D.C. today, and listening to the science, it reminds me of, sitting in my hospital bed, either from the UC or the PSC or post-transplant, waiting for them to come and draw labs, or, just waiting, grateful that I could see another sunrise and that there was a day, and wondering what this day would hold, and would I be a little bit better, a little worse, or what would we do, or how would we change it? But so grateful to be able to see that sunrise. So that is true. And Warner, you look like you have some similar comments on appreciation of each day.
Oh, absolutely. It's a second chance at life. Never take a day for granted, and I always try to be I try to boost people up that A, have transplants, or B, that are waiting on them, or C, didn't get them, and also need that emotional and boost of energy and support.
Absolutely.
So
one of the things that we accomplished recently that I think we should all celebrate is that on Friday, CMS finalized a rule about organ procurement organizations that some of us have been working for decades to be able to bring more accountability, to definitely have more transparency into the system, in the hopes that we can increase the donation rates so that more people could have these opportunities that the three of us have. The saddest thing, I'm sure, Dr. Satoskar, is when you have someone who needs an organ and there just is not one available. We're making strides in living donation. When people talk to me about the allocation policies, I'm like, that's just sort of rearranging deck on the Titanic. We have to get more organs to people. So, Dr. Satoskar, organ donation.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely right. Losing, a patient because they couldn't get a transplant in time, that's something that sort of doesn't really get easier, no matter how many decades you do this. And there still is that gap between those that need life-saving organ transplants and the ability to get them. There are still, many barriers out there, and we need to close that gap. And some of these steps that you're speaking of, such as some of the changes to the ways that OPOs report and OPO regulations, it's a step in the right direction. But we have more work to do.
I agree. So we have questions from our audience, and the first question is to you, Karen. Did you say you had Hep B or C?
I had hepatitis C, which is curable. So luckily, I was able to get cured. Some people can go ahead and even do some reversal of their liver disease if they haven't become. I was end stage, so I didn't last very long. I think I lasted about 2.5 years before I did pop a tumor. But even that is not as frightening to talk about today as it used to be.
And it is exciting to see hepatitis B, the vaccination surely, but as we work towards a cure for hepatitis B as well. Another question. In your opinions, what is the next major hurdle that needs to be overcome to further advance transplantation? Thank you, Dr. Donna Cryer. So I'll let Dr. Satoskar answer that first.
Yeah. So, I have a couple thoughts on that. If you think about transplantation overall, I think that the biggest thing we need to do is what I had mentioned before, is reduce that gap and allow more people to receive transplants who actually need them. If we're really talking more about post-transplant care, though, and what advances I would like to see, or what I think the next steps are, we've made a lot of progress in terms of immunosuppression over the years, drugs that allow patients to keep that organ long term. But one of the things we do see in the long term is side effects from the medications. And one of the challenges is we still don't really know how to easily predict who we can minimize immunosuppressive medications in. are there potentially some patients that could come off of immunosuppressive medication? And that, I believe, is probably the next evolution in terms of the post-transplant care, is to continue to advance the science to understand that better, so we can minimize the long-term side effects of some of these immunosuppressive medications that are required right now.
I think that's right, and that that delicate balance of immunomodulation is so delicate. I was shocked the first time when somebody said, "Oh, you're only on your first liver." I'm like, "This is only liver transplant. I want to have take care of it." So how do we make sure that I don't, reject this organ, but also how do we make sure that I'm not, picking up, every cold, flu, and COVID that passes by. Complicated by the fact that I come from an autoimmune background, so my immune system is wanting to do, aggressive things, not only to my liver, but to my colon or my skin, or my cartilage in my knees or other parts of my body. It's a very delicate, very complex science, and so I think that's really important. I'm HIV positive, says our next questioner, and received a liver from an HIV positive deceased donor. Thankful for the HOPE Act. Yes, we are. It's interesting. I remember being a very very junior staffer at UNOS, and we were negotiating organ transplant policy with HHS, and there was a provision that disallowed HIV donors even, and I remember pointing out, I was like, well, they're already being done. Like there was one or two centers at the time that had a pilot that they were doing it in the circumstances that eventually became fodder for the HOPE Act, that if there was consent on both sides, and HIV positive to positive, that should be available. And I was so naive. I think I was 26 or something, and I just sort of blurted out in these negotiations, and like, well, that's already being done. So like that, that can't be right. And I was crossing out his legislation and his regulation, and he was not very happy with me. But I was correct. So our friend Bree, hello Bree, says, this was exactly what I had questions about this morning. Thank you. Oh, well, I'm going to read that into the comment. Thank you, Bree. We are all here with you.
We're thinking of you.
We are thinking of you, and we are going to be right here with you along your entire transplant journey. Never worry about that.
It gets better.
It gets better. We're going to get you to the transplant, and then we're gonna get you through. It is scary, and so Karen, before I ask you the question that I know that I'm promising you, I did have the opportunity for somebody to see a scar before my transplant. There was a woman and her husband who came through, and she was there. I think she was only a few years post-transplant, and she wanted to give back and make it easier for other patients. And she did show me what her scar would look like. At that age, too, where I was in my life, I was what was most impactful to me was that she was married, because I didn't know if somebody would love me after I had that scar. Would I be disfigured to the point where nobody would ever love me, or let alone marry me? So the fact that I'm like, oh, she had a scar and somebody still fell in love with her, and she got married, and she could have a family, those were all really important things to know, that there was this future for me. I think that's something that we can provide, and we all are providing for newer recipients, that there is a future for them. And Karen, your future has held of late a significant amount of activity with AASLD, with our medical society, as they implement their patient engagement strategy, which Dr. Satoskar, as former chair of the policy committee there at AASLD, you have played a role in making the case that partnering with patients was a good thing for co-designing and advancing the field with the medical society. And so, Karen, tell us about your experience working on the COVID response team, that elite rapid response that has been putting together this fantastic multilingual, multicultural, ever-growing scientific and communications juggernaut of a COVID response. It's really been phenomenal, and for you to play a part in it.
It was amazing. Yeah, the doctors, at first I was a little mouse in the corner, I was kind of shy, and coming from a place, there's a little bit of insecurity when you've had HE as long as I have. And then even post-op, I knew I wasn't functioning on the level I'd functioned at before. And so I was just a little mouse. It's like, why am I here? What do they really want? And they just kept asking, how does the patient feel? How will the patient hear this? All right, will you help write this? And so pretty soon, I ended up writing probably a total of helping with about 12 documents. And I found my voice. I was a writing teacher and a professor. And so I was able to find my writing voice again. And so they empowered me. And so it's back to that, going all the way from that pre-transplant, insecure, unstable, anxious, caregivers don't even know what to do with you. You don't know what to do with yourself. Your life's very disorganized. And so back to the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you don't even have your basic needs met. I don't know if I'm going to need a blood transfusion today. How yellow am I? And it's so uncertain. Moving then into that place of creativity, I can live my best life. I can bring my gifts to the world by partnering with my team, by partnering with other transplant recipients. So we founded the TRIO. 3 liver transplant patients are now part of the Oklahoma TRIO, the Liver Transplant International Organization. We've got a lot of liver transplant patients in Oklahoma that are just next to come into your next GLI 3. But
I'm ready for that.
By partnering. Yeah, but so working with the AASD was at first I was very intimidated by it. And what I found was just the most caring group of people.
Not have suggested you. And it wasn't just me. There were several different organizations. When we were asked on the patient advisory committee for AASLD at that level, who would we recommend for this really important role in the COVID response? And we all said you. So know that we saw that in you, and several advocates and advocacy organizations were very supportive of you having that role and representing us, representing patients.
Thank you for that, Donna. Thank you, because that's what it's about then, is getting back. Someone believes in you, and that's what you do. You give to patients, and you still have a voice, and it's a valid one, and helping us to take a part in positive changes in the future. Thank you, Donna.
Oh, thank you. You all give me more than I give you. You are my strength and purpose, and it's an honor. And so I'll start actually with the. It's my answer to what I'm thankful for. In the spirit of Thanksgiving, what are each of you most thankful for in liver health or in life? I'm most thankful that I get to do this, that I get to, spend my days, walking and working in my purpose, of having a purpose so clear, and that it brings me in contact with wonderful people like all of you, and that I get to, give you wings, and that's so exciting. That's what I'm thankful for, to get to do this every day. So,
I'm thankful. Yeah, I'm thankful for the second chance at life transplant, receiving the transplant, and being able to be on with y'all today, and thankful for friends, thankful for my time at Camp Bridges, and just thankful to be alive.
I think we'll put the link to that camp in the show follow-up.
Yeah, please do. It's great.
About that. Karen, what are you thankful for?
It's just people. So I'm living in a cabin in the woods, and used to the right thread count really mattered to me, and those things are still important. They're still important, but I'm thankful for people, just the human beings that I encounter every day, doctors, surgeons, someone who's, co-infected with HIV and HCV. We're all just humans, and we're connected now. And I love the humanitarian effort that I saw at the liver meeting this year. I love the humanitarianism that's displayed here, Donna. Just people. Thank you.
Dr. Satoskar?
Well, I'm thankful for my health. I'm thankful for my family, and I'm really thankful for the opportunity to be able to do the work that I've been afforded to be able to do, and work with people like you and see these success stories. So I'm very thankful for that.
Fantastic. Well, thank you all for this fantastic episode on surviving and thriving post-transplant. I think we set the bar sort of high for people post-transplant. So, let people know that it's okay if you don't have an award-winning day, but maybe tomorrow you will.
Sure.
I want to have you join us for future episodes of GLI Live. This is now streaming across Facebook and Twitter and YouTube, I believe, and they may tell me another platform once I leave here. But we would also love if you would consider designating the Global Liver Institute as the recipient of your Giving Tuesday gifts next Tuesday, December 1st. They help put on more programs like this. They help us have more students like this whole Oklahoma posse that we're going to apparently be having in our Advanced Advocacy Academy. So we want to make sure that we can serve every patient and empower them to serve with their passion and expertise. So that's what that gift will do, and as well as your holiday shopping on Amazon Smile. I'm just really grateful for this opportunity to talk with you today, to share a little bit with you over the course of these past few months as we pivoted during the COVID-19, and GLI Live has become so much more. So I wish you all a happy, healthy, safe Thanksgiving, everyone. Until next time.
Thanks, Donna.
Thank you for having us.